Thank you so much, ThinkViser and speakers of Hyderabad for giving me the opportunity to come today and present whatever knowledge or whatever capability that I have that I can share and distribute as much as possible to the wider audience. Before I start, I would like to wish and hope that in this current global pandemic that we are, living through in COVID-19 situation, everybody is safe, healthy, and comfortable. I would just hope and pray to God Almighty that He just keeps us all safe and secure, not only ourselves but all our loved ones. And I also pray that all the affected people, whether who have direct contact with the virus or people that are affected because of the curfews and other aspects that has triggered due to the virus, are all taken care of and staying safe as well. Uh, Today, the way I would like to go about doing this session, and is in a way that I would want everybody to participate as much as possible. Uh, while I'll be going through the entire spectrum of corporate world, industries, your career, how do it shape up, etc. But I would also like to hear from the audience as I move along. So the way I would, ideally like to conduct this is the use of chat box as much as possible. I may be throwing some questions, so I will be constantly looking at the chat box to see if people are able to respond to me, and I can understand if they are listening at the same time as well. So, having said that, let me begin by talking about what is a corporation. So before I really talk about a corporation, can the audience uh, give some answers or give their insights into what they think is a corporation, how it is structured, etc. I'm pausing to see if there are any audiences who are active to respond.
Yes.
So yes, so we have a group of people working with efficiency and understanding. Very good. A group of people working towards a common cause. Organized group with common goal. Okay, interesting answers. And I would not say that you're not right. uh, but if you have to really defend what a corporation is, if you go to the very bare minimum and the basic itself, a corporation consists of individuals. you know this can be a group of people who own these corporations, etc. Definitely the people who are involved in making this corporation successful. A corporation can also consist of a group of companies. A group of companies can consolidate to form a holding company, which is then a big large corporation, etc. And then corporation also consists of people who you keep hearing the words stockholders or shareholders. These are individuals who have ownership rights on this corporation, etc. So in a nutshell, it is basically a legal entity that has the right to exercise all the mandates that it has been given to by all the people that are involved in the corporation itself. So this is in a nutshell what a corporation is. Now, definitely, corporations do work upon a common goal. They do, come towards. They have a purpose. They have a vision and a mission, and then they execute this vision and mission in terms of achieving its end goal, which can be, either satisfying the customer, the stakeholders that are involved, etc. Can you people list some of the stakeholders that a corporation should take care of, you know, or what according to you is the mission of the corporation? So I'm looking to see if somebody is chatting. Okay, so I have one: customers, profit maximization, profit. Okay, interesting. Customer success. Okay, government. Interesting. Wealth maximization. Fantastic. Stakeholders can be anyone who has interest in the activities of an organization. Okay, great. That's absolutely right. Shareholders, banks, investors. Now, this is a very good one. Corporate social responsibility. So, yes, I mean, absolutely right. Um, Now, when it comes to maximizing shareholders' wealth, historically, when I grew up studying MBA or, bachelor's of business, we were always told that the role or the ultimate responsibility of the corporation is to maximize, the executive committee that runs the corporation is to maximize shareholders' wealth. And if I see more recent definitions of cooperation, you would really find, and this is a very paradigm shift in the world that you will see today, is that the definition has changed from not only maximizing shareholders' wealth, it is basically taking into account an um, inclusive aspect. That inclusive aspect is all the stakeholders, all the people that can be directly or indirectly affected by the corporation. Their goal is to actually create that culture, create that inclusivity in terms of incorporating and managing all the responsible stakeholders who are directly or indirectly associated with it. These stakeholders could be, the people in that country or in that economy, or the society where the corporation belongs to. And hence, you see an immense responsibility of corporate social responsibility playing a very significant role in today's world. Corporations are not just focusing on its own shareholders to maximize their wealth. That is only one aspect, but a larger aspect of it is to take care of its people, the people that work for the organization, the people that that are part of the organization, the people in terms of its customers, the people in terms of the investors, the regulators, etc. So these are really an important aspect in the definition of how the corporation's purpose has changed. And this change is very significant and relevant in today's time. So if I move on, we need to understand a corporation from how it functions. So for any organization to function, there has to be a proper structure in place. Now, this structure is something that actually defines the roles, the responsibilities, and how you go ahead and intertwine or interact these roles and responsibilities to achieve that purpose of the organization. So, in terms of any organization structure, based on your knowledge and your insight, can you list down, what are the key positions? How would a corporate or a corporation be structured in terms of the hierarchies and levels, etc.? So I'm waiting for people to type. So someone is saying there is an employee level. Yes, there is an employee level, of course, but what would be the departments? How would be structured from, like we said, there is an individual, and this individuals or companies or shareholders, they own this. So how from that shareholder to the bottom level, How is the corporate structured? The structure would depend on the type of corporation. That is right, of course. But there is a typical structure that we can consider of mid-level management, lower level management. Okay, great. Top level and low level management. Interesting answers. Strategic level, managing and directors, functional level. Okay, great. So progressing with it. So I think a lot of people have said shareholders. So at the helm of the organization, you have the shareholders. These are people that have direct investment or ownership in this in a corporation. So these are typically people who own these corporations. Now, shareholders, it depends on how the corporation is structured. So a corporation can be a private company or a public listed company. Now, when we say a private corporation, it means it is not available on public space, meaning it's a very close knitted, maybe a family owned corporation or a group of people that own it. So that's what private ownership or shareholder structure is. When we say public traded companies or public corporations, these are the corporations that are listed in stock exchange markets. Some of the famous stock exchange markets. Can you guys list me some of the famous stock exchange markets? NSE, BSE, yes. Bombay Stock Exchange. Great. You have Sensex. Okay. Nifty, Luxembourg. Interesting answers. Nifty. Okay. Nifty is index. New York Stock Exchange. Correct. MCX. Okay. Nasdaq. Great. Great. Tadawul. Yes. Very good. Tadawul is a Saudi stock exchange market. Interesting. Great. Fantastic. So yes, I mean, if you are listed on the stock exchange, then you are able to pull a very vast array of people or investors who can come and purchase shares, and they can create the ownership structure through that end. But for uh, every corporation to operate or move forward, these shareholders, they elect something called a board of directors. So this board of directors are actually people who represent the shareholders. So these people are basically, it depends on what the resolution of the shareholders are. So the shareholders have a general assembly. So based on the incorporation or legal articles of association of any corporation, there is the shareholders elect a board of directors. These board of directors are representatives of shareholders, and they are responsible for the entire governance of this whole corporation. So what do the board of directors do? They actually elect the executive committee. The executive management, which you can say the top level management of the organization, is basically elected by these board of directors. These top level managements are generally your CEOs or CFOs or COOs who help run the operations of the corporation. So when the board of directors are elected, they also elect what is called an executive committee. So this executive committee is responsible for running the entire operations or running the entire corporation to ensure that the purpose and objective is met. So when they move ahead, they actually create what are called the operating units in a corporation. So operating units in a corporation, I see there's a question, how are board of directors elected? So there is basically a shareholders meeting, so for example, generally, there is a general assembly of shareholders. These general assembly of shareholders, there is a nomination process that happens. These could be either people directly having shares of the company, or these board of directors can be people who are external people who are invited to become board of directors. But anyway, it's an election process that happens in a shareholder assembly, and they are held, they elect through that nomination and election process by the shareholders. Annual general meeting held yearly. Typically, when we say annual general meeting, it is generally yearly, and they are formed for. There is an agenda that is there. The agenda it goes through all of these things, and then all the shareholders pass a resolution based on whatever action items need to be taken. Whether they have to change the board, they have to change the direction or strategy or anything. So these are things that happen in the annual general meeting. So moving on, the operating units are basically, these are the units that help gel together and perform the core requirements or mobilization of the organization. So what the example that I'm showing right now is, let's say this is a very simple manufacturing industry. Okay. For instance, let's say this is a textile industry. Okay. This is a textile company or corporation, for instance. So you would have a production unit. They are responsible for making all the clothes, etc. You have the finance department who are responsible to ensure that all the accounting, bookkeeping, record management, the finance, bank accounts, treasury, cash, all of these things are handled. You have the HR department, typically responsible for all the people that are part of your organization. Uh, and then you have the sales and marketing team who are basically involved in creating all the nice advertisements, the mobilization, attracting customers, etc. Then you have the information technology department that ensures that there are tools and applications that are there to be effectively used in daily day-to-day operational activities. Then you have the supply chain management, which basically this department is involved in ensuring that uh, the raw materials, the needs of all the other departments in terms of what it requires to run their own daily operations are actually met through proper supply chain. So, for instance, in a textile corporation, what you would have is you need to procure raw materials from the textile from the farming lands, and these raw materials are basically sourced by all of these supply chain people, and that is passed along to the production. So then production starts running and functioning, and when this production is ready, they can either pass it back to supply chain or the sales or marketing people who help identify the customers and help distribute this. So this is how they are interconnected with each other, these departments, and then function at somewhat in an. Then you have the role of finance. The role of finance is very critical in terms of managing all the aspects of records. For instance, if you purchase anything, you have to record that transaction in your accounting ledger. So the finance team are responsible. Those are recorded, uh, and then it also needs to be ensured that these are. But I see a question, budgeting too. Yes, uh, finance is a very vast topic. So all aspects of finance, including budgeting, forecasting, are also involved over here. So in the role of finance is very critical in that aspect, that it not only records information but
Which
valuable.
मेरा वीडियो नहीं था ना
So when you actually, okay, there was a mute unmute happening. Um, so yes, I think there's a request for everybody to mute their microphones if you're not speaking. So I would appreciate that. Thank you so much. So what I was talking about is finance. finance, if I have to divide the finance, I would typically divide it into a pyramid style. Okay, so let me kind of use a tool, drawing tool application that we have over here to highlight finance. So what you see is basically a pyramid, and there are three spheres, three shapes that it is. So the bottom part of the pyramid has the largest chunk. So what typically this is called transaction processing, TP. So what people in finance do is predominantly information gathering. So you book a sale, you book a supply, you book a purchase, you book your costs, you book your payroll, your salary costs, etc. So all of these are elements of transaction processing. So the larger aspect happens of transaction processing. The aspect second large aspect is called financial controlling and reporting. So what here it is important to understand is, so now you have gathered all the transactions that you have processed, and you are actually running this whole transactions into a very, you need to ensure that there are proper controls, measures, etc. were placed when you were booking the transaction. So for example, if you are booking a sale transaction, you need to ensure, if I am the finance controller, I need to ensure if this sale transaction was originated by the right customer, was booked in the right manner by the finance person or accountant in the company. And that is where finance controller and reporting is important. Another aspect of finance controllership and reporting is basically they also interact a lot with external stakeholders or regulators. At a later stage, I'll come to what regulators are, but they ensure, for instance, all the income tax reporting are done, all the audits that are done by external people are done. These form of reportings, whether it's in the form of company secretary or pension authorities or anybody that has to be reported externally outside the corporation, they are involved in doing that. Another aspect is they are also involved in feeding reports to the other key stakeholders in the organization, which are the executive committee, the CEOs, and their committee, the board of directors, their committee on the financial performance, etc. Now moving to the third, which is basically useful insights. Now this is a very evolving role of finance, and this is something that has happened in the few last decade or couple of decades ago. What we have seen is the use of analytics and other tools that are there. We live in a very information overload era, so because of that, people would like to know more insights. So for example, which are my most profitable customers? How do I increase my sales to these profitable customers? Now, because finance typically are custodian of transactions and information, they are expected to provide these kind of meaningful insights to the key decision makers in the organization. And that is a very tipping point role of finance that can only sustain if you have processed all the transactions, you ensure through your controllership and financial record that these transactions are accurate, and then you come to a point where you can provide meaningful insights. So this is how typically the framework of finance functions in any organization. And then obviously you have various departments within finance to run this this thing. Now the whole role, one last role that is on the corner over here is basically the role of quality management and internal control. This is a very integral function that comes in to ensure that all the roles and responsibilities assigned to each of the departments are actually functioning in the manner in which the standards are set by the organization. And typically, a quality management and control function directly reports to the executive committee in most organizations, and they are actually people who conduct internal audits to ensure the organization is functioning to the standards and guidelines set. And they are also people who, for instance, if you are if this is a textile corporation and it's producing cloths, to ensure that there is no cuts in the cloths, or the quality of the material is as per the standards set by the industry or themselves. So they do these type of testings and provide the results to the departments, uh, to ensure that uh, they are meeting the standards and requirements not only set by the industry but internally by the corporation itself. So this is typically how the corporation is structured, and how the linking between each of the departments, how they function together.